The 2023 football season is now over. Kansas City Chiefs come home with the Super Bowl victory, and it's time to take a look at another NFL mock draft. We're looking at some trades here early on. We're going to take a look at who is set to move up to give up some draft capital. And we start with the Houston Texans, a team that I think if you believe that Bryce Young is the top quarterback in this class, which a lot of people do, I think that you can't sit and wait for someone to jump over you to take him. So I think with that being said, the Texans are going to trade with the Bears to get Bryce Young. I don't think that they really want to stick around and wait to see what happens. I think that they're going to move up and they're going to make sure that they get their guy. Now, Chicago obviously gets a couple more picks out of that. They move back one spot and still have the opportunity to take either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. Then you're looking at two guys that are beasts in their own right. They are game changers, respectively. And I think that you're just getting a different area of the field that they're dominating. Will Anderson is going to be someone that's going to command attention on the edge. Jalen Carter is a freak on the inside. I think that the Bears need help on the defensive line. And honestly, it's kind of tough for me to pass on a talent like Jalen Carter, but I think the edge is really where Chicago needs more help. So I think they're going to go with Will Anderson here. Now, the Carolina Panthers, another team that trades up here, they trade with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, a team that to me, I don't know if they trade back this far. They do get quite a bit out of this trade here. Carolina moves up because they don't want to miss out on one of their guys sitting at number 9. And I think with the talent that they have at quarterback on their roster right now, I think that you're looking at a team that desperately needs to get a quarterback added. So when you're looking at who is available, you have the remaining three in CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis. To me, CJ Stroud is the best of those three, at least the more complete of the three. And for that reason, that's why I think that they're going to go with him. If they want to go more of a longer term route, maybe not as quick of a rebuild, you look at Anthony Richardson to me over Will Levis. And now we get to Indianapolis. And this is a team that is going to look to trade up as well. And if they can't get it done, they might have to give up quite a bit. But this is a team that definitely needs a quarterback. And now they're stuck between Anthony Richardson and Will Levis in this one. Now I can see them moving up. I can see them getting the top pick or even moving up one spot to get the third pick because someone is going to try to jump them. And there's so many different options of teams that can jump up. Houston needs to get a quarterback, Carolina, Indianapolis. Seattle and Detroit could consider getting quarterbacks, but unlikely with how their quarterbacks played. Las Vegas could use a quarterback. Atlanta might need a quarterback if they're not sold on Desmond Ritter, but I think that there's still enough teams to jump Indianapolis. So now they're kind of in a tough spot. I think that Anthony Richardson is still a good option here. I think that he is a player that's going to be a phenomenal talent if this team's able to get him to develop how they want him to. The arm talent is there, the athleticism is there. There's plenty to like about Anthony Richardson's game, and there's no reason to believe that he's not going to be at least extremely explosive, extremely exciting. Even if he doesn't turn into, a Hall of Famer, he's still going to give the Indianapolis offense a little kick in the butt. Now, Seattle comes up, and the fact that Geno Smith played as well as he did this year is a really exciting thing for this team. Now, another exciting thing because of that is if you look at this board and who's still available, Jalen Carter sits atop this class right now, and he sits atop of who's remaining, who's the best player remaining. Now, Miles Murphy is another intriguing player for the Seahawks. I think if Jalen Carter falls this far, it's going to be tough to see him fall further than that. It's just a matter of what does this team value. Now, a lot of people have been picking edge players for the Seahawks, and I think that's where Miles Murphy comes into play and maybe a what they want more so, but it's going to be tough to pass on Jalen Carter. But just for the sake of the next pick, we're going to go with Miles Murphy here. I still think that's a good pick for Seattle, even though they're passing on Jalen Carter. Now, Detroit is where things get interesting because they do need cornerback help. But I think with this deep class of corners, you can afford to move on and wait for your guy at pick 18. You could also trade up if you really like somebody. With Jalen Carter on the board in this defense, You already have some exciting players like Aiden Hutchinson. I think adding a talent like Jalen Carter is a no-brainer and makes this defense even more exciting to watch. Now you go to Las Vegas, a team that, like you said, needs a quarterback. They also need help protecting the quarterback. It's just a matter of, are they going to stick with the options that they have? Right? The Derek Carr situation is an ongoing thing. We'll see what happens today, and you're going to see a team that's going to reevaluate the position once he's gone. Or I don't know, maybe there's a slim chance that he sticks around, but we will see. And if Will Levis is on the board, I don't know if I necessarily, I don't know, a team is going to take him, a team is going to overspend on him and take him too high. And I just think that you're looking at a team in Las Vegas that needs help at the quarterback position. You need to build towards the future. And if they believe in Will Levis, maybe this is the right pick. I don't see too much of a value in Will Levis, but I know that someone's going to take him. So there maybe is a different pick between who I would pick and who I think is going to be picked. We're going to go with Levis just because they do need a quarterback. Now we go to Atlanta. Atlanta is an intriguing team to me because a lot of people think that wide receiver is the place that they go, the position that they go with. I think if we go to the other side of the ball, the guys that are guarding the wide receivers, AJ Terrell is really good for the Falcons. And I think you're looking at someone to pair with him to make this secondary a nightmare to throw against. Now, there's still a safety position that is going to contribute to that. But if you have two corners that can shut down the opposing offense, that's something that's really exciting. And when you look at who's available, Christian Gonzalez and Joey Porter Jr. give you two 6'2", 200-pound players that can really play the ball well. And I think that you're not going wrong either way. You're getting two guys that can play really well defensively, and AJ Terrell is someone who's going to enjoy having that type of talent around him. Now, you also need help on the defensive line. If you think Tyree Wilson is going to be a stud, then I think you go that route. But I like the idea of Joey Porter Jr. pairing up with AJ Terrell to make that a tough secondary to throw against. Now, the Cardinals come up, they traded back, as you remember. They need some help on the defensive line. JJ Watt retiring leaves a big hole, some big shoes to fill. They also need some help at cornerback as well. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think that secondary in Arizona is really talented and extremely fun to watch. So to me, it's between edge and corner. You're looking at plenty of options. Christian Gonzalez, Tyree Wilson, and Devin Witherspoon are the top three players according to this website available remaining. And it's really a no or a win-win situation. You're getting more draft picks because you traded back, and now you still get some extremely talented players. We're just going to go with the potential of Tyree Wilson, a 6'6", 275-pound defensive end who's still really developing. I think he is really fun to watch. He put on a show at Texas Tech, and there's still plenty of room for him to grow as well. Now you go to the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off that disappointing loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. One thing I believe that fans will want now is maybe the cornerbacks were a little bit uh, overrated in a way. Maybe Darius Slay is really good. I don't think you can say that about him, but I think James Bradbury got exposed by some. Some people believe that coming in. So cornerback is definitely a position I see them taking here. It's just a matter of, do you want Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon? Christian Gonzalez took tremendous strides at Oregon this year, so that's a great option. Devin Witherspoon plays the game 100 miles an hour. He is an absolute flyer on the field. And I think that the development of Christian Gonzalez gives him a little bit of an edge. Even though Bradbury didn't have the greatest performance against Kansas City, he and Darius Slay can give Christian Gonzalez some good wisdom on how to be a better corner to continue his development and make Philadelphia's secondary much better as well. Now, Tennessee, you have to find a way to give Derrick Henry more room to run. You have to find a way to open up the passing game. I think there's some exciting players on the Titans passing attack. You look at Treylon Burks coming in and coming out strong towards the end of the year. And they're even with the loss of AJ Brown, I think that was a interesting trade, but you're looking at a passing attack that could take off. Now, the tackle position is going to need some help because of the players that they're losing, whether that's free agency or moving on elsewhere. I think that tackle is going to be the pick here. Paris Johnson is still the top tackle in this class. I don't think anybody truly can challenge the consistency and the ceiling that he has. And Tennessee is going to love that he is still around when they pick. Moving back to the Texans, they moved up to get Bryce Young, but they were still able to keep the number 12 pick here. Now, wide receiver is something they're going to need help with. Bryce Young needs someone to throw to. When you look at what this team did this year, the offense leaves a lot to be desired. And that means that a wide receiver is more than likely going to be the option. However, you could look at the defensive side of the ball, at the edge position. Although, when you look at who's available, not a ton of talent that maybe you want to pick with number 12. You can move back, maybe get some more picks. And if you're going to stick with this pick, it's going to be between Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison, a guy who's 6'4" in Quentin Johnson and moves quicker than people realize, and a guy who is really good at separating from his man in Jordan Addison. You're going with an undersized quarterback, so we're going to go the opposite way and go with Quentin Johnston as a 6'4" receiver, a big target for Bryce Young. Now we go to the Jets, who just inquired with the Packers about the availability of Aaron Rodgers. So maybe the quarterback position isn't as big of a need if they're able to land Rodgers. Now they're going to need someone to block for him. They're going to need some help on that side of the line. And I think that a tackle that to me is going to be higher than a lot of people realize is Georgia's tackle, Broderick Jones. He has that alpha mentality. He brings the right mindset when blocking, and that's going to be something that helps the Jets offense. The New England Patriots come in at 14. They also need a wide receiver. They also need a tackle. And just like everybody else, they also need help at corner. This is a really interesting position because Jordan Addison is available, but also an intriguing player that I think fits what New England wants is Devin Witherspoon. He has that foundation that you're really intrigued in, and that's something that could make him a prospect that they really like. So I think the fact that he's coming from Illinois too, not exactly the powerhouse that you would expect, or that the Patriots kind of look for that underdog guy, and Devin Witherspoon is someone that can still develop into a stud and has a long ways to go. But I think at the same time, he has a great foundation, plays the game the right way, and showed a lot of upside this year at Illinois. Next is going to the Packers. So if they trade with the Jets, I think they would get that 13th overall pick. So they'd have 2 first-round picks, and you're in good shape if you're getting those 2 picks. However, if you don't get that and Rodgers ends up staying, you're looking at an offense that needs to get better. Now, Christian Watson is really exciting. I think that he is going to be just fine. The offense could use some help at tight end and wide receiver. Jordan Addison is still available. And then at tight end, Michael Mayer is someone who is going to get a lot of attention. When you think about what Aaron Rodgers really likes, you remember Davante Adams and what he was able to do. He was able to create separation. He was able to make guys look ridiculous. And that is something that Jordan Addison is very good at doing. So I think that Jordan Addison is that next star player, and pairing him with Christian Watson could be extremely dangerous in the NFC North. The Washington Commanders, another team that, once again, we're going to keep hearing this over and over again. It's going to be a theme. Cornerback is a need. And you look at who's available now, we still have some good options. Cam Smith is still available. Keely Ringo is still available. Clark Phillips, Emmanuel Forbes. Even when you start getting into Deontay Banks, Tyreek Stevenson, there's a lot of options. I don't think that they can wait till the next round to get someone. And a guy like Cam Smith is going to help this secondary. Now they have a front seven that's really exciting. That defensive line can make a lot of secondaries look good, but you still need the talent to cover the guys downfield. And Cam Smith is a good fit for what Washington wants to do. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, and again, this is the one website that has 32 picks in the first round. There's only 31 because of the Dolphins. The Steelers, again, just kind of being around here of need a corner. They also need a tackle. They need some help on the defensive side of the ball at the front seven. There are some options that are really interesting here, and it's just a matter of what do they need. Now, a guy to me that screams Pittsburgh is Brian Bresee. He's an absolute wrecking ball up the middle. And if he can stay healthy, then this is a really good pick. He's similar to Jalen Carter. He brings that good blend of power and athleticism that you don't expect from someone who's 300 pounds. He is someone that is going to be a really exciting player, a force in the middle if he can stay healthy. Now, the injuries will have him dropping a little bit, but that is someone who's going to get after the quarterback. He's going to help a guy like TJ Watt, who's already there. That'll be really fun for Pittsburgh. Lions are back up. Now, this is where they have some options because they have Jeff Okudah. They can draft a corner that can pair up with him and make life very miserable for the guys throwing against them. This is a defense full of athleticism, full of potential, and you're looking at some extremely talented options at corner. When you look at the edge players, there's some options there as well. Now you went with the defensive line in Jalen Carter. So that is something that you addressed already. So maybe you don't go defensive line, maybe you go to the secondary. You could also look at getting a tight end. I think that's really good option. And honestly, when you look at the corners available, like Keely Ringo, super fast, super physical, get some penalties because of that. That's maybe a concern that you could wait, maybe pass on. You look at even further down, Emmanuel Forbes, if he passes into the second round, Deontay Banks, Tyree Stevenson, there's some good options in the second round. So maybe Detroit looks at offense. Jared Goff was solid for them down the stretch, and a guy like Michael Mayer would make that offense tremendously better, both in the running game and the passing game. Bucks are up next, and this is a team that figures to be going to a rebuild. Tom Brady is gone. The quarterback position could be something that they'd have to trade up to get, but they can also wait till later to draft a guy and see what happens there. Cornerback and edge are two of their biggest concerns here. And I think a guy like Keely Ringo brings that mentality that you want for Tampa's defense. He's going to bring that speed and physicality, which will make them really fun to watch. Back to the Seahawks, another team with 2 first-round picks. And now you're looking outside of, you're not looking at quarterback again because Geno Smith did what he did. You're looking at some help on the interior offensive line, the interior defensive line, maybe cornerback, wide receiver. There again, there's a lot of options. Wide receiver to me isn't something that I would necessarily address right here. You look at team guys available, and with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett there, I think that you're in good hands for now, so you can kind of hold off there. Interior offensive line, this is someone right here, O'Cyrus Torrence, that is going to be an absolute force for whoever drafts him. I think that this is a great pick for Seattle. It's going to give them some help on the offensive line and make this offense even better. The Chargers come in, need a wide receiver, mostly because I think in the end, you need someone that's going to be a younger player that can maybe stay healthy more than what they've seen from Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Someone they're going to need to step up and be a force for them. You could also look at tight end here. I think that's a really intriguing option with Darnell Washington and Dalton Kincaid. Maybe you go with the potential of Luke Musgrave, a player that is going to rise up as the closer we get to the NFL draft. Zay Flowers, what he did at Boston College without really any help is truly incredible. And that he's going to see more help in the NFL. And I'm not going to say it's easier, but he's going to see more open field because he's going to get better matchups and he's going to have more support in the NFL than he did in college. Baltimore, it needs a wide receiver as well. Now, what they do, what Rashad Bateman looks like when he comes back from injury is going to be an interesting play, an interesting development. And you're looking at the wide receiver position, and maybe you think a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has the potential to be really good. It's just a matter of, is he going to be healthy enough? Jalen Hyatt is a blazing fast wide receiver that can make big plays. But then when you look at the defensive side of the ball, is Marcus Peters coming back? The cornerback position could use some help. I think Emmanuel Forbes would be a great pairing with Marlon Humphrey. I think that Emmanuel Forbes is an underrated player that's sitting just as a fringe first round player, someone who knows how to play the ball. He has good ball skills, as evident by his production in college. And I think that's a good pick for Baltimore. Now, the Vikings, this pick I've been thinking about for so long. John Michael Schmitz. The reason why I like him, there's multiple reasons. First, the interior offensive line needs some help for Minnesota. I think that they need some help, whether that's at center or at guard. If Garrett Bradbury ends up being the guy, that's fine. They need some help at guard though, so I think that this is still a good option. When you look at also what else is available, you could go Peter Skoronski, give you some more help on offensive tackle, but he's most likely sliding into guard, so that fills one of those needs. You could go cornerback here, but I don't really think that Clark Phillips is going to do anything for you on the edge. I mean, I like Clark Phillips a lot. An underrated player that plays with a ton of tenacity. I think that you can also wait in the next couple of rounds. But also, when you look at what Minnesota did last year in the draft, they drafted two corners and a safety. So I think they're going to wait to see how those develop before they pull the trigger on another one. Maybe they wait till day two, day three to address that. Same thing with safety. Maybe you go with a guy like Brian Branch. That's really interesting to me. Actually, that's very interesting to me. I think that's a pretty solid option. It's just a matter of what do you want to address. And I think again, because Minnesota addressed the secondary so much, I think they steer clear of secondary picks at pick 23 and go for something that's maybe more what they need. Wide receiver could be an option, but that feels like they'll be fine. Even though Adam Thielen's getting up there, KJ Osborne emerged as a good option. Justin Jefferson's obviously a stud. So to me, I'm going to go with John Michael Schmitz. And another reason for that is he played both guard and center with the Gophers. So that gives them flexibility and he has the experience at those positions. This is the next pick that's really interesting to me. And I think that if Evan Ingram moves on, then Jacksonville goes right to tight end, whether that's Darnell Washington or Dalton Kincaid, just a matter of what they want. Kincaid gives them more of that Evan Ingram type of a feel. Now, he is a solid blocker, but he's more of that pass catcher, whereas Darnell Washington is going to need some time to develop. So I think that Dalton Kincaid is the go there. That's the pick for them. The Giants need some help at a few positions, linebacker being one of them. But I think where you're going to look at more for the Giants is going to be at wide receiver. You need someone that can help Daniel Jones down the field. And a speedster like Jalen Hyatt could be exactly what you need. So we're just going to not overthink it. We're going to go. And actually, no, let's do this. Saquon Barkley going to be a free agent. I think that when you have an option like Bijan Robinson available, I think it's hard to pass on that talent. Bijan Robinson can do everything for you. He is phenomenal in the trenches. His ability to make one cut and make multiple guys miss and pick up extra yardage. He is a superstar in the making. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. And he also brings great value as a pass catcher as well. So if you don't want to pay the price for Saquon Barkley, which I don't think that the Giants should do, I think you should wait and see what happens if Bijan Robinson is available. Because if he is, I don't think you should hesitate to take him. Now the Cowboys are in kind of a similar situation. Ezekiel Elliott could be an option for the next year or so, but it doesn't feel like he's a long-term option. Tony Pollard, if his price comes down, unfortunately for him, that injury doesn't help. But if his price comes down, then maybe the Cowboys think about just re-signing him and moving forward with him. However, if they decide they want to just move on, an option for them to replace Pollard's production is Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is exactly what Tony Pollard was for Memphis in terms of production. It's just that he was used in a different role. He was more of a running back than that flex player that Memphis used Pollard in, but Jahmyr Gibbs was at times Alabama's most consistent receiver, especially earlier in the year when they were struggling. Jahmyr Gibbs was the lone pass catcher for Bryce Young that he could rely on. So for that reason, I think that Dallas goes with Jahmyr Gibbs. That offense is really exciting to me. Buffalo is up next. This is where I really would hope if you're Buffalo that Osiris Torrance was available. He is not. So now we go to the defensive side of the ball where a guy like Brian Branch falls. I think that's a great pick for Buffalo. He fits into that defense really well at safety. He can also play a little bit of nickel, and that's honestly just a solid pick for the Bills. It's a team that's in good position, has a good core that they don't really have to stretch too much to try and improve their roster. Cincinnati is up next now. Offensive line is always going to be something we talk about until Joe Burrow gets more time to throw. But I think they took a good step forward this year. So now they can look elsewhere to give him some help. At tight end, talent like Darnell Washington could be too good to pass up on here. 6'7", 270 pounds, a big target. When you look at what they're trying to bring back this year, T. Higgins is a free agent, so they need someone that's going to replace his production if he does not come back, if they cannot afford him. And a guy like Darnell Washington could do that. Now, obviously, they'd like to have T. Higgins, but if they can't, that's the next best thing. New Orleans, because Sean Payton went to Denver, and Denver is going to be in a rough spot in this draft. New Orleans is back in the first round, and that's huge for them. Now, again, they're a team that needs a quarterback, but they're probably going to have to wait till later. That is okay. You look at what do they need from there. You look into the defensive line, wide receiver. I think the pairing of Jackson Smith-Njigba with Chris Olave could be really exciting, but I think other needs are more prominent. And when you look at the edge that they need help with, Lucas Van Ness is someone who could be an explosive player for them. He could get them what they need, and I think that's a good pick for them as well. Philly is back on the board. They addressed their need of corner, and now they're taking a look at maybe the defensive line. You could be taking a look at running back, although they honestly, to me, they look just fine doing it by committee. I don't think that they need a feature back. And also, when you look at who's available, I think you're stretching for some of these guys, so you're probably not looking that way. Defensive line could be an option. And when you look at some of the players available, BJ Ojolari is someone who is getting more and more love as the season goes on. He is someone to me that is a great talent, has good bend around the edge, good length to keep guys off of him. And he's going to learn a lot from that front seven. Again, whether you bash the secondary or not, the Eagles' front seven is really talented and really exciting, especially at the defensive line. And BJ Ojolari can learn a lot from that group. Finally, the Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. An interesting play to me is they have a couple tackles going into free agency. They also have Orlando Brown, who is an absolute, yeah, he's really good protecting Patrick Mahomes. And another guy, if you're looking for, this was just really interesting to me, someone who is going to rise quite a bit. Dewan Jones, 6'8", 360 pounds, would give the Chiefs the biggest tackle duo in the entire league. That's really exciting. Now, whether Andy Reid is back or not, I think that you still can always add more talent, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Chiefs do in terms of if they draft an offensive weapon here or if they go with defense. I believe that they're going to look at the defensive side of the ball. A guy like Kalijah Kancey is really intriguing mostly because he's an undersized player, and that's the one thing that people are going to bring up. But he is an absolute stud. If you go back and watch the film, he made a ton of plays for Pitt. Whether he was making the tackle or near the play, he was the one consistent player that was absolutely dominant. And Pitt's defense was really good this year in terms of NFL talent, but he was the one that stood out above the rest. So I think he's a name to keep an eye on. And if he slips into the second round, then you're looking at someone who is going to be a steal. Now, this was an interesting start to this mock draft towards the end, less trades, so you're not going to see as much. But it's now that the season is over, it's all about the draft. It's all about free agency. It's all about the combine. And that's a really exciting time for not only the college players that are moving on, but the NFL teams that are looking forward to the future as well.